Hi everyone. Good morning. I'm Sophie, and I'm the COO of Empathy. I'm really excited to be here today with Nicole, the CHRO of Windham. As we heard, we're talking today about something that isn't necessarily the shiniest topic in HR. In fact, it's often more of a taboo. But it is also one of the most human topics. And it's actually one of the most strategic as well, which is around how do we support employees through loss and life's most challenging moments. And at Empathy, we were really built to actually do just that. And some of the data that we've seen actually shows that the effects of grief last an average of 16 months, shaping actually not just the emotional well-being of your employees, but actually the connection, the focus, the productivity, and actually their likelihood to stay before any sort of formal leave ends. And so, yes, as I said, our business is really designed to do just that. We have built a product that supports people through loss, both the practical and the emotional aspects of that, really designed to help employees return to work in a way that they feel empowered. And actually, we're not saying that the grief is going to get less hard, but we know that the slew of things that one has to deal with make that grieving process that much harder. And we've actually since added things like pregnancy loss, pet loss, and sort of knowing that loss is sort of completely universal. And then also leave to help employees return to work after periods of accident, illness, injury, mental health, and pregnancy. And so Nicole is here really as the star of the show, and we're really proud to have partnered with Windham. You do extraordinary work to really take this vision and make it real in your day-to-day. So I'd love if you could just start by introducing yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sophie. Good morning, everyone. It is so wonderful to be here. As Sophie mentioned, my name is Nicole DuBois. I am Chief Human Resources Officer at Graham. I've been there a little over 19 years, which is just mind-numbing at times. And Graham has been around quite a bit longer. So we will be celebrating 220 years next year. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And originally, we were actually an orphanage, and we were founded by several forward-thinking women, one of which was Eliza Hamilton. So in Hamilton, the musical, towards the end of the show, there's mention of Eliza Hamilton's legacy. And so originally that was us in 1806. So we're no longer an orphanage, but we are in the space of child, family, and community services here in New York City. The work is tough work. It is important work. I've been connected to that mission. And so taking care of our people who take care of our people is, something that's really near and dear to me.
And even though you have had 220 years of supporting your people, I also know that you shared that during the pandemic, you realized that there was something really important about sort of rethinking how you support employees. And so I'm curious, sort of, what did you see that made you rethink how you support your team through life's most hard moments?
100%. So a lot of our employees, so we have a workforce of about 520. Most of our employees are direct practitioners. And so they spend a good portion of their work days in the field. And so that remained true during the pandemic. So while many of us were home, myself included, I was remote and hybrid at times, we had staff that were leaving their own families to go out into communities to make sure that children and families that we work with were safe. And our staff were doing that with tremendous burden on their shoulders. They were leaving their own children at home, their spouses, their parents, and coming back home worried that they would actually bring back the illness, bring back COVID, to their own families. Our staff were experiencing their own losses, just repeated losses. And I was talking with my team and I was thinking, there has to be something out there. Us offering, at one point we had 3 bereavement days when I started 19 years ago, and we increased that to 5, thinking, yes, score, we're doing, a great thing. But what does that look like when someone has actually experienced loss of someone close And we're saying, here's the 5 days, come back to work and be ready to be on it and be a performer and all that, right? And so I knew that was insufficient. And so I just started Googling. If ChatGPT was as, evolved as it is now, as, back then maybe I would have used, one of the generative AI tools, but I Googled and I, just looking for what supports were out there, and I happened upon empathy. I mean, quite accidentally, and the name, empathy, just felt so right. It was about humanity, it was about compassion, it was about putting myself as a leader in the shoes of someone whose lived experience, literally is, I have lost someone close to me. And so when I found it, I was so excited, and empathy, as I was reading about it, and I had an intro call, they sort of had me at hello, and because I was like, what? In addition to offering leave and, fine, we have our little EAP that nobody uses. I don't know if anybody here has high utilization of EAP, but they do funeral planning and, help with applying for benefits and all the things that in a moment of being bereaved, just how do you lift your head? I was brought back to when, I lost my maternal grandfather over 20 years ago, but I didn't have to do any of the planning. And so I was thinking to myself, imagine if I did. And so I was just so happy to, happen upon empathy.
Well, we are so happy to be partnering with you.
Yeah.
That burden that you talked about with your employees and what they were facing is something that we have called the grief tax, because it is the hidden costs that actually every organization pays, whether you see it or not.
Yep.
And I think Windham was lucky that you did see it. But the research that we saw showed actually that the average bereavement leave is just 5.5 days. So you did bring yourself up to average. But as you say, that negative effect of grief is well beyond that. It is teams picking up slack because someone isn't able to bring their full self back. It is missed days of work, reduced productivity, burnout. And as I said, it lasts on average 16 months, but sometimes much more. But I think where it becomes even more a workplace issue is that goes even deeper. And what we found was actually that 79% of employees told us that they considered quitting their jobs after a major loss, in part actually because of how their employer supported or didn't support them. And actually 76% feared, as a result of not being able to bring their full self back to work, feared being let go entirely. And so for me, that's a really big signal that our systems as they currently stand aren't working as they should. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more, Nicole, about, I love how you sort of went about finding empathy, but what did it look like sort of rolling it out for your team in practice?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just boils down to us sort of lifting up the importance of centering humanity, and I mean, let's talk talent. I mean, this has been the type of conversation that we've been able to have with staff that has affected, sort of our engagement results when we do staff, engagement surveys, has affected, what staff report as their experience, in terms of being a part of our workplace, has helped to shift, empathy being one of the benefits that we added, but has helped to shift, sort of the level of satisfaction and the experience that folks have had, and has helped to shift retention. It is also, something that my recruiters are proud to include when they are, sharing with prospective hires what our value proposition is. Why should you choose our organization over another? We're not the only organization. We've been doing this work for longer than a lot of organizations in the United States. We're the first non-sectarian, and that's the pitch that I have to give all the time, which is true. But we're not the only ones in the game. So there has to be a differentiator, right? And so when we can talk about what we bring, and that we care about our staff beyond what they produce and what their deliverables are, we actually care about them as humans. It makes all the difference from both a retention standpoint and a recruitment standpoint.
I love that. So you're actually seeing, by being able to say we show up for both retention and attraction.
That's right.
Love that.
100%. 100%. It's what I would care about. Yeah. I mean, I was just in an interview yesterday, And one of the, you get to the end and you turn it over to the candidate. Do you have any questions for me? And literally one of the questions was, tell me about your culture. Tell me about what it's like to actually work here. And so, being able to say, it is more than our expectations on the role description. We really care. And it's not just lip service about the experience that employees have. That matters.
No, it really does. And you actually just mentioned how that translates into engagement as well. And I think the stat you shared when we spoke last week was that in your latest engagement survey was at 60%. It's 60% participation, which is huge. I know sort of when I'm sort of driving engagement surveys, it's always a struggle.
I know, I'm usually at the edge of my seat, like, please respond, please, I'm begging you.
I want to hear it all. But I think that response is really telling. And I'm curious sort of, you started to touch on this, but why do you think that people were so engaged? And sort of what does that signal about the culture that you're building and sort of where you are today?
Yeah, I think it's a number of things. I think folks are excited about Graham's mission. And one of the things that's kept me there is that we're constantly innovating and thinking about ways to reinvent ourselves. So I think there's that for sure. I think I have a team member that is excellent. She's like a cheerleader when it comes to everything engagement. And so she literally was like, I see you, I have not forgotten, don't forget about me, complete the survey. And so that has been a part of it. And I think the tide has shifted. I mean, I think, we've gotten to whatever the post-pandemic new normal is. I don't even know what that is anymore, but we've gotten to sort of the other side of the thick of it. And folks have, really been able to experience again, or experience like this version of what it means for Graham to show up for its people. And I see that difference, every day. I go out and I was at a breast cancer walk in Central Park with staff, last Sunday, and I left my home in Jersey and got out here at like 8-something in the morning because it mattered to me to show up and to be there with my team and to be there with staff that also were showing up. And so I hear from staff, I speak with staff, and I know that they see and they feel that we do care.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect example of, actually standing shoulder to shoulder. It's not lip service, you're really there. And I'm curious about the role of managers, because I think that particularly in challenging moments, be that the pandemic, be that in loss, be that in sort of day-to-day, sort of what's going on behind closed doors, empowering managers and enabling managers is so important so that they themselves don't burn out. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
100%. So we have a CFO. He's actually, I'm so proud of him. He's retiring after 32 years at Graham. So my little 19 years is nothing, right? But I remember him saying something about 10 years ago, and we were in a leadership meeting, and he said, people don't leave organizations, they leave people. Mm-hmm. And none of us ever forgot it because it was 100% true. And so we know that pouring into our leaders is a critical thing for us to do if we're to sustain our workforce. And we, in doing that, we recognize that, especially in the space that we're in. So a lot of the work, I talked about human services and child and family services, is in foster care prevention. It is deeply emotionally taxing. It is difficult, difficult work, right? It does not pay enough. It will never pay enough, and people do not, come to the work because they're looking to become millionaires, right? And so us making sure that we're supporting our leaders with training, with coaching. We actually brought online, one of the other things that we added was a coaching platform that gives access to any employee to literally go on and be matched with a professional coach of their choice. They could be matched based off of gender or location or whatever are the things that matter to them. And so we knew that that was important to provide a support to supervisors, but also to complement the support that they are able to provide to their direct reports. So when our supervisors are feeling burnt out themselves and overloaded, staff know that, yes, they have their supervisors, and also I can dial up my coach. I can do a video call with my coach and get, additional support around stress, around, navigating or preparing for a challenging conversation, managing, the impossible balance of work and life, right? And so that absolutely pouring into our supervisors and even providing additional support to complement their support has been critical for us.
Thank you. I think a through line that I've been hearing from you is actually all around sort of both investing in your employees, but also how that is, you really are focused on making sure that what you do sort of translates into trust. And it really seems like that's the big foundation for sort of your people philosophy, your leadership philosophy. But I also think it's a really important one for how organizations innovate. If you've got that trust and you've made that investment, you sort of are able to innovate a little bit more. And, you just talked about, that if it was in 2025, you would have used a generative AI tool rather than Googling.
Right.
And I think that when employees do trust their organizations, they're open to more ways of working, be that using a virtual coach rather than going to your supervisor. But actually, what I'd love to know is how you're thinking about the role of innovation and AI in extending the type of care that you are providing. And do you see AI fitting into your world as a people leader? And how you think about sort of managing a workforce that might also feel anxious about it?
No, thanks for that question. So Microsoft Copilot and ChatGPT, they're my new BFFs.
Mine too.
And no, it's funny that you asked that question because I want to say it was a few weeks ago. I was actually on a panel in Las Vegas. It was Las Vegas. It was fun, but no, it was a panel. And we were talking about reducing workforce anxiety when it comes to incorporating AI as well as automation, right? I have a team right now that has mixed feelings about AI. I have, team members that are like, geez, what does this mean? Is, if we incorporate these tools, is it going to replace my job? And, the conversation back is, I think it can replace some jobs. I don't think it necessarily will replace jobs. I think it can increase efficiency. I think, some of these tools can become almost like a thought partner in our work and increase efficiencies. And so that's literally what I, have been holding true when I think about incorporating innovative tools and AI in the work. I think there's definitely a place for it. I use some of these tools almost every day. I am open to demoing, to hearing about, the platforms that we already have, be them, whether they are performance platforms or our coaching tool, that all now actually have an AI add-on. Zoom, I'm in every day. And I was so happy when I said to our IT team, please add Companion. It is wonderful, right? Summarizing notes and, all of the things. So absolutely, I believe there's a place. There are some folks that decide that they want to use ChatGPT or, some of these tools for therapy. That's on them. That's their choice. I'm not sure that I'm going to actually, recommend that, but that's cool. But no, absolutely, I do think there's a place for it, and I have a completely open mind and heart. Yeah.
And much of what you said really chimes with how we think about the role of AI at Empathy as well, because I really think about how it can actually drive a much more personalized experience for someone.
Sure.
And in our case, providing much more personalized guidance for someone that is experiencing loss. You touched on some of the aspects of the Empathy app, be that planning a funeral, writing an obituary, closing down the 47 different accounts, ranging from a bank account through to Netflix, through to Amazon, but all the way through to, I'm really struggling, how do I have that conversation with my manager to come back to work? And so for me, that's really where AI can be that force multiplier, surface the right resources faster, maybe even autofill complex paperwork so that you as an individual can actually focus on sort of managing your grieving process. And I always think about how can technology help humans do what humans do best and not replace the human experience. Our business, after all, is called Empathy, but in fact, amplify it. And it sounds sort of very similar to your approach. So we have 1 minute left. So I think as I wrap up, I'm coming back to something that you're saying sort of again and again, which is really that when you're creating that sort of environment of safety, people can be honest about their needs. You can respond to their needs as well. And in doing so, you built this real sense of belonging. And I think we see that again and again across the 1,000+ employers that we work with, that supporting employees through these challenging moments isn't just an act of kindness, which it very much is, but it is also an act of strategy. It improves retention, it improves engagement, and it builds trust. And doing so really helps organizations stay resilient in the face of every emerging challenge, and we've heard about some of them today. So I think if there's one lesson or takeaway that I'm going to leave you all with today, it's care in these moments must be continuous. It's not conditional, it's not time bound, you don't sort of dip in and out. And I think, again, that's where sort of technology alongside a deeply human strategy can really complement it. And in doing so, sort of allow that innovation to be sort of human first, but complemented by technology, sort of not the other way around. So big thank you to Nicole for sharing your experiences.
Thank you.
What an incredible people leader
so
you
much.
are. Thank you, everyone.